All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast and the podcast that you're voting for in the Football Content Awards. We are one of the finalists, the only finalist amongst Chelsea podcasts on the list, Nick. And look, the people, as we get into talking about Brighton, couldn't do much more to give you a better birthday gift beyond the Chelsea win than leaving a comment on the Instagram post or voting in the Football Content Awards for us to win against an Arsenal podcast, Liverpool podcast. Like, we just can't look. They're winning on the pitch. We can't have that.
No, look. If you could so kindly, for my birthday, a free thing that you can do, just take 30 seconds out of your day to go make comments on. But I mean, let's get him. Let's be so dominant in the comments that no one else wants to even play. Like that's what I want. And then go over to the website, submit a little form. You only have to submit us. There's a bunch of fields. You can only submit us. Bam, then you're done. It would be awesome. Like we've come close to winning this damn thing before. I want to win it this year. I want to win it. We might send a representative. We're trying to figure that out to the Anfield show that's happening in Liverpool. That's, I think, November or something like that. Like, let's fucking win this thing. Come on, guys. Rally.
Could be the biggest dub that Chelsea registered this entire season. So
the whole month of November, maybe.
But we will talk about a major Chelsea win today against Brighton in the League Cup. That's right. The Seagulls' wings were clipped by Nico. He's not sorry, Miss Jackson, and Cool Cole Palmer. Combo together made it happen, was the difference on the day. But Nick, it wouldn't be a birthday podcast for you if I didn't hand over the reins with no Brandon Busby here and let you walk us through some delicious 3-word match reviews.
You know, guys, this is sort of commitment that I give you, that even on my birthday, I am here present, ready for more Chelsea talk. And you know what? Mr. Brandon Busby is going to have to tap in for me at some point in the future. So have some of that, Brandon, while you're listening to this podcast. Look, love 3-word match reviews. I'm sipping a little bourbon. It's a birthday celebration. Danger with Take That Dominoes. Nailed it. That's really good. The 5 takes on 5 stripes with the Pizza Hut UK doing the same thing, or Domino's Pizza UK doing the same thing, and then they do the reset the clock. So, you know what? Bam, we scored goals. Andrew McDougall, one of the Porto 5. Flock off Seagulls. Get it? Rob, our journalism RP, with Levi picked correctly. I'm sure we will talk about that this evening. Pablo P with Carabao Cup. Cucurella. Okay. There's going to be a lot of things talked about with Cucurella. I think calling him Cafu perhaps a little egregious. Silva lining, which I like a lot. Nice name. Calmer with Palmer. I like. Sachet with lemon started working. Fresh lemony scent could be another one. There's one. Def Juck's daddy, friend of the pod, with winner, Seagull dinner. We're all eating well tonight. And then McGleasy. Thank you, man, for Laney birthday win. Appreciate you.
Well, Nick, I didn't capture all of them, but there were a lot of people leaving wonderful 3-word match reviews for you. Tana, others, list with the happy birthday, Nick, things of that nature. There's a lot of love out there for you. I went, and you're going to get this one because I know you're a amateur horticulturist.
Of course.
And
you know me.
You got the greenest of thumbs, Brighton's early bloom. Because you know what happens when you bloom too early? You are susceptible to damage. And that's what happened to De Zerbi's side. What was yours?
This is the good birthday blues. I was prepared for not some good birthday blues, some horrible birthday blues, but the bad news, folks, is my birthday only comes around once a year, so we need some other magic involved with the team to step up the wins now. So if anyone could think of something, if we're celebrating National Hot Dog Day, maybe we play on that day, that'd be great. Whatever.
All right, well, that one, we'll have to bun that one off for the future. Look, we just want to say thanks to everybody who supports us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify with 5-star reviews. You can do that. It's a free way to support the podcast, in addition to, giving us a vote in the Football Content Awards. Look, we're also on the march to 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. A lot of you who watch on YouTube aren't even subscribed. And so, that's just mistake number one that you can correct. You can get notified when we drop new videos on there. You can see Nick sipping a bourbon. You don't even just have to listen to it. You can see it happen with the stash in all its glory. And ultimately, it helps support us as the tiny little independent organization as we punch upward against the ESPNs, the CBSs, NBCs, and others of the world. But look, you can go back and check out some of the older podcasts that we've done. We had an Academy update we dropped actually today, Day of the Match with Phil. We did a Blue Royalty season preview, and then we also are going to be dropping ahead of the weekend a preview of the full match with Sam. That's right. Sam and I will be back with another match preview, but we're getting into this one. It was Brighton, Wednesday, September 27th, the day of Verlaney's birth. It was in the Carabao Cup at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea won! Those Brighton bastards 0. And it was Nico Jackson, the 50-minute, with a very, very sexy assist from Cole Palmer. We're going to roll some fist stand highlights. It's been a while. And as long as they're there, we're rolling them. So let's jump to that. All right, Nick. So lineup time.
Oh, was there an uproar when the lineups were announced on? Admittedly, the graphic was a little tough to read. It's, neither here nor there. But, 3 left backs in the lineup, Dan, just as we all suspected. I think everyone got that correct. We had he's returned to Robert Sanchez in goal. We're going to call him Robert. Performance, I think, will generate whether it's a Bob, big game Bob, or Robert, and so it was a Robert today. Mark Cucurella, as everyone predicted, playing right back, notably not Cafu, for those in the 3-word match review. Axel Disasi and Levi Colwill playing center back pairing. No Thiago Silva being rested. Ben Chilwell, it turns out, Dan, that he's a left back, and he actually played as a left back today, which I thought was fascinating.
Wild.
A midfield pairing of Big Leslie Ugochukwu, and Moises Caicedo, and then a dynamic attacking 4 of Mykhailo Mudryk, Cole Palmer with Palmer, Ian Maatson getting a run out. I love it. And Nico Jackson, the match winner. Substitutes of Raheem Sterling on in the 68th minute, Enzo Fernandez on in the 75th minute, Conor Gallagher on 75th minute, and more minutes for Armando Broja in the 87th minute. Unused subs of Georgi Petrovic, Alfie Gilchrist, Josh Brooking, Alex Matos, and David Washington. El Presidente still not getting some time, but is playing.
O Presidente. Remember, O Presidente.
O apostrophe President. Yep, got it. And look, Dan, the stats all over the place. It was a weird game. I don't know what to make of this, but I shall pass the baton back to you for stats.
Look, as we know, possession doesn't win football games, and so 39% of the possession to Chelsea didn't matter on the day. We had 9 shots to their 13, 4 on target to their 2, 1 off target to their 7, 4 block shots apiece. We had 5 corner kicks to their 8. We had 5 offsides, a few in there that maybe were a little questionable, to their 2. And look, the odd one, which I'm sure we will get into at some point as we just add new names to the list of referees who are not fit to officiate a match. 16 fouls and 2 yellow cards for Brighton, with 6 fouls and 1 yellow card for Chelsea. 15 free kicks to their 6, 26 throw-ins to their 25, 10 goal kicks to their 4, 2 big chances, 1 missed, which means 1 made, to their 1 with 1 missed. And yeah, I mean, that kind of gives you an example of what happened. And then we had Sam, CFC Central, dropping the one random stat this time. Is the first win against any opposition in the top half of their league in any competition since the win versus Dortmund, which we were there for, on the 8th of March, 204 days ago. First win versus an English side in the top half in any competition since Villa on the 16th of October last year. 347 days ago, and Sam did qualify that it's only first divisions of any country, because someone is bound to point out that Wimbledon were in the top half of League Two when we played them.
Of course. How could we forget that excellent game? Look, again, weird game. Chelsea and Brighton, two of the higher possession teams in the Premier League. Obviously, this is the League Cup. Obviously, there was a lot of rotation between both teams. What we would call their strongest squads here. It was a fascinating duel, and these two teams have gone through it. Did a little bit in preseason, did a little bit here in the League Cup, and we have two Premier League matches coming up. I'm sure we'll be matched in the FA Cup too, because that's a completely unbiased draw. And here we go, Dan. This is right into the lovely NV. We're calling it NPET shithouse moment of the match. Reece James. Can we talk? He didn't play today.
Wait. He wasn't on the pitch. How can he get the shithouse moment of the match? I need you to explain this for the listener.
It's technically the shithouse moment of last match, but
there's a lag time.
We get from the FA regulation and discipline update, just as you want to see. This is getting called in the principal's office in Twitter form. Reece James has been charged with a breach of FA Rule E3 following Chelsea's Premier League game against Aston Villa on Sunday, 24th September. It's alleged that the defender used improper and/or insulting and/or abusive and/or abusive words and/or behavior. It's a lot to read in a row there. Towards a match official in the tunnel after the game. Reece James has until Friday, the 29th of September, to provide a response to this charge. Reece may not be playing, Dan, but I think it's safe to say that the lack of standards of the refereeing corps in England has upset him.
Well, I don't think he was the only one upset, because I think a candidate for this as well would have been Mauricio Pochettino receiving a yellow card for dissent after Broya was adjudicated to be offside in our own half, which is just absolutely wild. And look, there was no VAR. There was a lot of weird calls. There was some very uneven, heavily uneven officiating in this. But you know what? We won. So it doesn't hurt as much. And we're not going to dwell on that, because there are positive performances to praise. So we're just going to take a real quick ad break. And when we're back, it's going to talk about how we feel to see the win and a little bit about Cole Palmer on the rise. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, Nick, so I think we kind of covered off on how the birthday win felt, but I think in general from the team and from the supporters who were at the ground, it felt like this, as we talked about, it did feel like a must-win game from a righting the ship as it relates to just the vibes at the club.
Yeah.
We talk about the intangible elements. This isn't going to show up on an XG chart. It's not a stat that we read before, but we knew heading into this match that Mauricio Pochettino, that the players needed to show up and show out for the supporters. And we could hear it in the way the chants were being heard and kind of piped through the audio. And we were also hearing it as we talked to people who were at the ground, Ollie, others who were talking about like Cucurella's name was being sung, the applause for Mudryk at the end, the way that, Cole Palmer got a standing ovation, like the vibes from this result and the way the team fought throughout, particularly as it got into the second half, was really, really good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, tons of storylines here, right? I mean, this is Chelsea struggling at the beginning of the season. This is Brighton on a rise over the last 3 seasons, really. These two teams have not so much history, but a lot of shared players and interest in cash over the last handful of years. And two managers who are pretty fiery. Right. I don't think it was any surprise that you saw this game be so foul heavy. I don't think it was any surprise that you saw this game played at a very, very high tempo for a League Cup match. Like, if you remember the tempo that we played against Wimbledon, it was very lethargic. It was, it was a whole. These guys came out flying today. And I would say for a large part of the first half and less so in the second half, Chelsea were up against it. Brighton were playing much better. Brighton were pressing the absolute hell out of us. We struggled to make adjustments in-game in the first half. And I think what Chelsea fans were looking for, what I was looking for out of this game was an adjustment and fight, right? We couldn't lose to these fuckers again after last year. We have to beat this team. Like, in the hierarchy of football, Chelsea needs to beat Brighton 10 out of 10 times, right? So when I looked at this game, one, I had some skin in the game because I predicted we would win this competition. so look, I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie about that, but I looked at this game as like, one, it's an opponent that neither team wanted to lose this game, right? Because of all the stakes and everything I just mentioned, all the context. And two, Chelsea had way more pressure. It's at home, a place that we've struggled this year. The fans are rightfully upset about the performances on the pitch. The atmosphere could have been chaotic. It could have been bad, but the atmosphere is actually really good. And I think there's the sense that I got throughout the second half in particular, Dan, was that there was a real will to this team to not let in a goal, to not make a stupid mistake, and to push on the front foot and get, easily our best chances of the game came in the later second half, right? So this is all, I think, a very good thing for a young team to go through who, we need them to get some momentum. We need them to start believing in each other, and I think they did in the second half today.
Yeah, the first half was disorganized. It was chaotic to the point that you made. We weren't finding any rhythm. Particularly when you make changes of this nature. I mean, Cucurella, who hadn't played in almost a month's time. So hadn't played since the first round that we were involved in this competition. Off the bench into right back. You have some crazy changes as it relates to Palmer getting a first start. So like that's something that you have to kind of adapt to. Matson playing an attack on the right hand side. Ugochukwu getting an opportunity as well. So like those components make the side, particularly as Disasi and Colwell were actually a center back pairing instead of the last game where it was Silva and Colwell as a center back pairing with Disasi as a right back. Like these were just, again, more changes against a side that, while had some rotation, still used a fair number of first choice players that De Zerbi would continue to use. Obviously, Steele wasn't in goals. Like that was kind of a change for them. No Ferguson, right? So Joao Pedro was up top. Yeah, but this was also, I think, a big game of the fact that we've paid Brighton a ton of money. They feel like they kind of hoodwink us whenever they feel like it. We haven't seen Caicedo kind of jump up. They've been flying in the Premier League while they're selling off, making record profits. They're in Europe. Like, they have a lot, rightfully, to point at us and be like, yeah, older brother, like, you had your time, you had your fun, and now it's time to get out of the way because the new cool kid in town is going to be able to rally ahead because we've got all the swagger in the world. And particularly in that second half, it was we're going to shut you up. Like, in particular, one of the more impressive performances, again, I don't think his whole game was good because I think his first half was super chaotic, but Leslie Ugochukwu in particular, the way he carried that card, and maybe
he was
very fortunate.
Very fortunate.
Barr was not in this game.
He was.
To not be a red card, a double yellow red card send-off, really found some rhythm and really was able to compose himself. And I think that to me was the example of like how the entire team chilled heading into the second half and really kind of found some rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked he came out after halftime. I felt like you're really pressing your luck. Probably should have been sent off. I think we're being honest about that. It was definitely a second yellow offense. There could be no doubt about it. He didn't get any of the ball, and he got all the man. So it was tough. But like you said, he wore it well. I mean, it was, and he wore it in a chaotic physical game, right? This wasn't a game where Chelsea were just kind of passing around the park, very lackadaisical. This was a battle. This was in the trenches. Every player's falling down. Every player's claiming everything's a foul. There were some really crunching tackles, right? And I think telling you, man, I think he is giving everyone pause as to who the third midfielder option is, or fourth midfielder option, obviously kind of past Connor. And, again, young player, he's 19, right? In a big moment, a lot on the line, a lot of fan sentiment on the line. It was this more of that than anything. and he showed out in the second half. I mean, some really critical passes out of pressure, some really critical physical play with the ball, without the ball, interceptions. Like these are the sorts of things that you'd want from an enforcer type of midfielder. And, I think he and Caicedo, once they figured out their dynamic a little bit, which took the entire first half, admittedly, were really good together.
Yeah, I think another person I want to talk about is Cole Palmer, right? First start as a Chelsea player. The way that he served as the connective tissue. He had all the neurons that just needed the connection between them to make the magic happen. He was really fun to watch. The way that he controlled the ball, the deft little touches, the ability to make some momentum forward. He had a shot, he had 2 shots. They weren't necessarily the best shots ever, but I think in general, 41 touches, 23 out of 25 passes completed, 3 duels won, 3 fouls won. Surprising that they actually awarded some of those fouls. 2 shots in total, 1 assist. To me, it's not just the way that he individually was performing, but like we saw in preseason with Nkunku, like having someone who can play behind the striker, who can be the connection between the midfield and attack, particularly with the combination of Mudryk on the left and Ian Mats on the right, that gave us outlets to really keep things flowing and made us more threatening. Even though it didn't necessarily pan out very early in the first half, you could see heading into that second half in particular, like the chemistry was developing, and like Palmer being out there was great for him. It's also great for Nico too.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he has to start in number 10 now. Like what we saw today from a link-up play perspective, from a forward passing perspective, from an ability to break press, like he was phenomenal against the press. The little touches, the little body feints, everything. Like he was dropping deep to get the ball. He was advancing it up the field. He was making the critical final pass. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. It was not perfect. But he has a ton of class to his game. I mean, it is little feints, little things. Someone tweeted me, this is what we thought we were getting with Havertz. And I was like, whoa, okay. That's bold. Okay. But, at the same point, you nutmeg assist. That's a pretty goddamn classy thing to do, especially with a striker who isn't necessarily putting the ball in the back of the net all the time. And so, 100%. I think he was my man of the match going away. A lot of other people were giving it to a lot of other players. I think Cole Palmer is my man of the match. He was the only guy who's shown for me in the first half, which is kind of the difference maker.
Yeah, I don't know if I still walk away feeling like the best thing and the nicest thing I could say about the first half, it was not good. So I don't know if I'm going to give a ton of credit right away, but I do think he was the performer, like the standout performer on the day. Again, standing ovation coming off the pitch was great. I do think the other benefit really is we know Nico Jackson not available due to card accumulation against Fulham on Monday. So he gets an opportunity to play and start in this match. And the way he continued to persevere, the man should have 2 goals. The man was robbed of a goal,
Robbed.
Absolutely robbed. Great celebration to go to the fans too, to get involved. Phenomenal. Completely absolutely incorrect ruling, and ultimately just what you needed from him. You needed the opportunity for him. Like, yes, it's the League Cup, but it's against a Premier League opposition. And so like that's I think you have to shade it a little differently. If we were playing like Blackburn on the day or someone else like who will be playing next, like you could grade it differently and be like, oh well, of course he scored. Like it's like a little bit of a weaker competition. This is a Premier League team that is in Europe, that is in the top 4 or 5 in the table. Like this was a good second half performance from him and is showing progress in his game.
Oh, 100%. Like this was a Premier League match. Like make no mistake about it. It was in the League Cup, but it was not played like a League Cup match, right? So I agree with you. I think this is graded a little bit differently. He was horrific in the first half. Just be very honest about it. He was very bad. Someone said it was like he had trampolines in his shoes with the touches. They were bad. But I think Naz made the point at the end of the game, and I'm always intrigued to see how close or how far away from his perspective I am when I watch. He was like, when he came off, the whole stadium was right behind him, supporting him. He obviously got that wrist injury early and was kind of fighting that too. Someone tweeting that now that he has the wrist wrap, he can assume the powers of Luis Suarez, which I was like, bar the biting, I'd love a goal scorer like that in the team. But this was a guy who really fought through it, right? Who fought through some really difficult moments. Should have absolutely had 2 goals. Just unbelievably poor refereeing, and got something good. And I did note, Dan, the celebration.
There you go.
Was fascinating. It was fascinating because he does the Drogba slide over to the corner, goes, points at the badge. The Chelsea FC and USA account do the W on the badge, which is a phenomenal little GIF click in. And then every one of the players went over to him and were like ginning him up. I think Axel D. Saucy actually punched him in the chest. I think he actually squared him up and hit him in the chest. And I think they're just trying to build this guy up because, again, we know he's streaky. But if he goes streaky the other way, we're winning some fucking games, which is great because the defense ain't the problem, right? So
crazy that goals win games. It's just the oddest thing in the whole wide world.
We've been doing this for a long time, and we haven't figured that out until just recently,
Chelsea need to figure it out too on a regular basis. Nico, good performance overall, better in the second half. We have a few more things we want to touch on. We want to get to talking about Cucurella. I don't know.
No.
We're not doing it.
We're gonna do Cucurella. It's just fine with me. Thank you.
Perfect. We'll talk about Mudryk and his game, and then we'll also talk a little bit about Robert. We're not going to talk about Bob. We're going to talk about Robert. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, so part 2. Look, Cucurella, where was that? Where did that come from? What multiverse did he pop out of? Look, I know Loki season 2, Nick. You're excited for it. We're about to see that drop. Which variant is he? Because I did not come up with the storyline. The Writers Guild only broke the strike the other day. This is the type of thing that they would come up with, that he ends up back in a game after a month off as a right back and really does a strong job, particularly from minute 50 through 85, 87, where he is just absolutely a terror, haunting Mitoma, haunting Joao Pedro. They are going to be dreaming about him, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, again, we said this multiple times. First half was terrible. He was bad in it. Let's just be candid about that. He was fine. We didn't give up any goals, so every defender's fine in that scenario, right? But it was a particularly inspired play in the first half. Second half, however, there was one moment where, and I think this kind of so someone says revenge Cucurella is the best Cucurella. And I was like, all right, well, get in revenge mode. I think the moment that this happened was that Mitoma was dancing around with the ball and played a dummy and got Cucurella to bite. And the whole Brighton section was right there and we're just jeering him. And it was the switch just flipped. The dude just started going Super Saiyan on every movement that Mitoma made. I mean, there were a few times where Mitoma is, we know how great of a dribbler he is. He wrote a thesis paper on the dribbling and all this bullshit. He's a phenomenal footballer. He is a really good footballer. Yeah. And there were times where he was getting frustrated because he couldn't pass Cucurella when Cucurella's not even a right back. This is that 30 minutes that you called out, I am 100% in agreement. If you can get that sort of defensive performance out of Cucurella again on Sunday, right? Or Monday, sorry. On Monday against Fulham, this is a really interesting kind of option. There, newspapers today came out and said he's looking to move in January, all this sort of stuff. And what we have not seen out of him consistently is a laser focus on doing his fucking job. He does a lot of other people's jobs. He tries to get all the way up the field. He tries to interchange. do this job. Be a problem. Be a lockdown corner in the NFL, right? Like, if you can do that to some of the other really great wingers in the Premier League, you can be an elite player, but you have to do it consistently and not just for 30 minutes.
There were a couple of challenges that he flew into that were just absolute insane. It was like NFL blitz style, where like it just absolutely flattened the player. I don't know. I loved it, particularly after seeing some of the performances over the past 2, 3, 4 games, this stretch here, where there have been some just passive and passenger-esque elements. Like, this was very refreshing. And I think, we heard that Cucurella's name was being sung by supporters. That wasn't happening at certain points last year. Like, this was relative to the way that he played against Dortmund, which got him that recognition in the Champions League for that one performance. So, like, this was a really good night for him. It's a really good night just to keep any good player like that locked in and focused and like, hey, maybe I still have a pathway. Hey, maybe I still have an opportunity. There is still an issue for Winstanley and Stewart to solve because there are still too many goddamn left backs at this club. But that is a problem for another day. Pochettino just needs to use who's available, and this was a good use of who's available to get the results he needed.
But our fullbacks don't stay healthy. I mean, we were just talking about this before we started podcasting. Like, we'll talk about Chilwell next. There's a worry that he's done his hamstring after a really decent second half where he was fighting super hard, right? So it's like, now what? Now you're playing Matson and Cucurella, the most unlikely fullback duo of the start of the season against Fulham on Monday. Like, it's crazy. And part of the thing that I'm just taking away from this whole experience today, again, if the laser focus is there, if the full-blooded challenges are there, if this player decides that he wants to be a bastard-coated bastard with bastard filling, there is a place for him in this team because none of our fullbacks can stay healthy and or not suspended. Right? There could be matches there, right? And it's not like, especially against a high-tempo opponent like this. This was not a walk in the park. This was, probably the best dribbler in the Premier League today, and playing out of position, he did really well. So, again, I think there's something to work on here. It's just going to be a weird combo on Monday.
Another combo that was developing, I think, through the course of the game is you had Mykhailo Mudryk, who was playing as a left attacker, left wing, and then Chilwell as a left back. We know that hasn't always come off. That did look to be a better combination in this match. I think the other thing that was interesting, Levi, who was also playing as the left center back, so he was also trying to play the ball into Mudryk. The only thing I would kind of highlight, and I saw a couple people mention this too, like Mudryk kept on wanting it at his feet instead of wanting it in motion. Like, the benefit of Mudryk is in motion. He is absolutely going to put others, even Lamptey had a really hard time without fouling aggressively, keeping Mudryk locked down. And we know that Lamptey has a very good, just general ability to shut people down, like has done a good job against us previously and for us in the academy level. So we knew that would be potentially a problem. He just needs to be more comfortable getting it in transition, getting onto the ball and making something happen with it. But again, I think just we asked for a run of games. We're seeing the run of games for him now. Poch is giving him an opportunity to build confidence, to build fitness, to build a platform on which he can springboard into the next part of the season here. And it looks good. It's still not the finished article, but I mean, at least there are signs where it's like, things are starting to click here. It's not all perfect, but what is it at the club right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is start number 3 in a row, right?
Yes, that sounds right.
I believe. You asked for a run of games. You're getting a run of games. Again, I think there's been small improvements in each performance in the way that he is starting to connect with his teammates. Again, pass flashed across the middle today that no one could do anything with, right? Cole Palmer puts it just wide on a second attempt. It's going to be fascinating to see, what one goal could maybe do for that guy. One assist could maybe do for that guy.
Sure.
Now, Fulham are not Brighton. Fulham are decidedly slower, and it's going to be a much more, I think, cagey sort of match than this. This was like a full tilt sort of game where there was a ton of space in behind. We didn't have the ball that much. And, I think when we did get it, it was like, go, 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 go. And so I'm intrigued by it. I'm still not totally convinced. I want to see more. And luckily for him, no Chilwell means party on the left wing.
Sure.
And, we're going to be missing a striker on Sunday as well. So I think game time is a coming.
Yeah, I don't see a world, and Sam and I'm sure we'll get into this in the preview episode. I don't see a world where he, unless some crazy injury happens and just knock on anything, happens between now and Monday, he's going to start an attack just based upon what Poch is projecting out there. I mean, Madueke, healthy scratch for this match. Like, that's
tough, man.
Very unfortunate. But again, Poch is going to make the decision. It's, it's a win. So you can't be, I think, necessarily overly critical. It is odd, though, when you have several academy players on the bench who most likely would not influence the match potentially in a way that he could. The other one, I think that you rightly mentioned, just the concern about Chilwell. We don't know what the status of the hamstring injury is, but that is a concern. I'm sure we'll get more information over the next few days. I mean, typically that is a +1, +2 after the scan, after maybe the swelling comes down to understand what level of damage is. Hopefully it's something minor, and we maybe just lose him between now and the international break, and he comes back afterwards. But if it's anything more serious than that, we will start having the questions about, does Matson start playing? Does Levi have to shift back over, which hopefully is not the answer. Like, it looked good to see Levi in a center back role with Disasi, with Axel there. I'd really like to see them get another opportunity to start together and start building that partnership, because that feels like, at least until Badiashile is ready, is the grouping. And Badiashile has played right back before. He played right back for Monaco at times. Like, it is possible that you could see a back three that had Disasi, like a back four, of which three of them are Levi Colwell, Axel Disasi, and Benoit Badiashile. And that actually gives you a ton of additional height that you would potentially not have on the with some of the other configurations we have.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who's trusted on Sunday if Chilwell cannot go. And of course, does not look like he'll be able to. So, yeah, I'm sure the lineup card is going to throw everyone into a stir on Monday. Sorry, not Sunday.
Well, I don't think he's going to be dropped, but boy, oh boy, Robert, as you'd like to mention, was playing with fire, had a bunch of passes directly to Brighton players, maybe forgot that the move actually went through this summer and that he was a Chelsea player, not a Brighton player, for moments of the match, just seeing some of those former friendly faces. But the distribution was a little tough. It seemed like the plan was to go long, wasn't connecting long in any capacity. Eventually started to go back to our traditional pattern near the very last 15, 20 minutes of the game, where we were playing it like directly to players in the back playing out, but not the performance outside of this, like a really, really good save. The Bob Demption did happen for about a 5-minute period near the end.
Bob Demption, get the fuck out of here, Dan. Look, if I'm Georgie on the bench, I'm probably training extra hard this week. After that, I mean, like the issue that you have with the way that Robert played today is that if Robert feels like a bad word now, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel just
it's when you go to the formal version of somebody who uses a shorthand name. It is like, it's when a parent is calling that individual out. Like, we caught you doing something wrong.
That's a Nicholas,
Yeah.
That's yeah. So the issue with Robert's play today, though, was this was a case study on how to pressure Chelsea into stupid mistakes. And if you think that they are the only team that's going to do that the rest of the season, that won't allow us to play out of the back with ease or comfort, you're out of your fucking mind. This is... They either need to get much better at that, or they need to figure out a long game to go over the press, because none of that was happening. Now, these teams, even Brighton, who are probably one of the fittest teams in the whole league, can't press like that forever, right? And so you saw it drop off significantly in the second half. The effectiveness of it, anyway, dropped off in the second half. But, I mean, there were 3 or 4 mistakes that could have been goals in the first half. Passes right to Brighton players, passes out of bounds that we weren't ready for on defense to get set again. That was not good enough. And, this is a guy who hasn't made, until this match, any like critical mistakes of note. A lot of the goals were high XG chances that went in. If he would have gave the ball to Pedro and Pedro would have scored today, that would have been a big old mistake, right?
Yeah.
So he got bailed out, in a lot of different ways, but it has to be a lot better than that, because of it, again, that's just the playbook now. You want to beat Chelsea, you want to force them dumb mistakes, press them like crazy, and the goalkeeper will give you the ball.
Again, not a perfect game, but it's a win, and Chelsea are through the next round, which in the League Cup is all that matters. Look, we won, which means we got to run a day in the match poll, and look, Cole Palmer ran away with it, 60% of the vote. This was shocking, though. Cucurella with 23% over Nico Jackson with 15%. I usually feel like the goal shades it, but the redemption arc, the redemption narrative just maybe struck a chord with people a little bit more in that moment. 2% were other. I think it was a lot of shouts from Mudryk. I think it could have been a couple different people depending upon your flavor, the way that you interpret the game. But I think Cole Palmer was the right choice. So credit to you, the voter. The voter
100%.
Got it right.
You guys got it 100% right. Cole Palmer, man of the match. Dan of the match as well.
And look, as we run through the other results, Everton knocking out Aston Villa 2-1, proving that our Aston Villa loss was just
incredible.
Dumb.
Yep.
Blackburn Rovers 5-2 to Cardiff City with a really resounding result. Bournemouth beating Stoke City 2-0. Arsenal beating Brentford 1-0. Fulham beating Norwich City 2-1. West Ham beating Lincoln City 1-0. Liverpool coming back after Leicester City went up initially and winning 3-1. That would have been very fun to see Leicester advance, particularly with Mr. Cassidy there potentially having been an opportunity to get into the next round. And shock of the tournament might be that Manchester City, the darlings of the Carabao Cup, out of here thanks to Newcastle United 1-0. I don't know. Feels like a good day of results.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's still some heavy hitters in here, right? Liverpool, Arsenal, and I'd even throw Newcastle into that grouping. But no City means it's open. Like there's an opening for everybody if there's no City in there. So a really interesting result for Newcastle, who struggled to start the season. They've really turned it on as of late. And guess what, Dan? The Carabao Cup gods did not harm us today. They smiled upon us even.
No, they did us a solid, which means the next round is going to be worse after this. So just
100%.
Enjoy that fact. We get to play Blackburn Rovers in the next round, and there are a couple of Premier League specific matchups: Bournemouth, Liverpool, Manchester, the Battle of the Uniteds, Manchester versus Newcastle, West Ham United versus Arsenal, Everton versus Burnley, and then you had Ipswich Town versus Fulham, Mansfield Town versus Port Vale. That would have been either of those would have been fun options for us to play too. And then Exeter City against Middlesbrough. Again, I think this is good for us. That you say that though, and then Blackburn Rovers just do an absolutely chaotic type of performance and end up winning, for some reason. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but this is good. This is better than drawing Liverpool, Newcastle, Arsenal, a team that we want to play them the 2 times this year. Like we don't want to play any of those teams extra unless it is in the cup final.
Yeah, it's at home too. So, again, another home opportunity to get the record right. Who knows what happens after this, but Chelsea should absolutely advance into the 5th round, and weirder shit's happened. A win like this against a team like this can really, really spur a team on for other results. Yeah. And now we need the team to show up on Monday against Fulham and repeat the performance, right?
Yes, it's a little bit of Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. It's doing things in repetition to get the form down and make it a second practice of just what needs to be done. But that's going to do us for this Nick Verlaney birthday episode, this Chelsea win against Brighton. The good vibes are at least back between now and Monday. Can't guarantee anything beyond that, but hopefully this is just the start of a win streak for Pochettino and the crew. But that's going to do it for us. So enjoy yourself, friends. Nick, any final words on your birthday?
Stay thirsty, my friends.
Well, there we go. That's going to do it for us. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Vote for us in the Football Content Awards. Links in the description. And keep the blue flag flying high.